Hello, everyone. My name is Wayne Bradshaw. I am the Policy Director for the Utah League of Cities and Towns, and I would like to welcome you to the open mic COVID Stories Roundtable. One of the things that we hear most from our conventions are that the networking opportunities are what people look for and enjoy the most at our conventions. And obviously, with the inability to meet in person this year, we've put together these kind of roundtables in the evenings for the opportunity to network, for you to get to know other people from across the state and what they're doing and the situations within their cities. So this focus group is going to be on COVID, and hopefully we can discuss what some of the best practices within your community and some of the challenges and how you've overcome those. So this is really about having a discussion and a dialogue. There won't be any presentation, and so I hope that everyone is comfortable and willing to participate. Just a few housekeeping items. This session is being recorded, and to make sure that we can manage the conversation and have it flow smoothly, if you would like to make a statement or comment, if you could raise your hand. So if you open your screen, there should be a raise hand option. I will try and call on you, and then you can unmute and make your statement, and we can move on to the next statement as well. And hopefully that will present a smooth dialogue throughout this hour and 15 minutes. Also, if you could remember to mute yourself when you are not speaking, that way we can avoid any background noise. So like I said, tonight's open mic and roundtable is regarding COVID. It's something that we've all been dealing with for the last couple months. It's impacted all of our communities, all of how our communities function, and the services that we provide. And so we'd like to hear about what your city has been doing, how you've adjusted, whether it's within your department or whether it's, if you're an elected official, some changes you've made in your meetings. And feel free to share some best practices that you've utilized and lessons that you've learned. So if anyone wants to kick it off, they can raise their hand. Otherwise, I would like to start the discussion about CARES funding and the funding that you've been utilizing and how you've been utilizing in the state. So I'll just wait for a few seconds in case anyone has anything they want to say before I kick it off. All right, I don't see any hands. So as everyone is aware, the federal government provided $1.25 billion to the state of Utah from the CARES Act to help us deal with the public health crisis that is COVID. The Salt Lake and Utah County received a direct allocation because they had populations over 500,000, which was directed in the legislation. And then the state received the remaining $900 million in a direct allocation. The state had set aside $245 million for all cities, towns, and counties across the state that were outside of Salt Lake and Utah County. That funding is being distributed in 3 tranches. The first 2 tranches are available to every city and town, and it was been distributed based on population, which is the same way that the federal government had distributed the CARES Act dollars originally. The third tranche, which is not available yet, it could be distributed by population, or that formula can change based on hotspots or additional need throughout the state. For Salt Lake and Utah County cities, the Salt Lake County has distributed 2 tranches based on population, and Utah County adopted a different model, which was a negotiation between the county and the mayors. And those funds were distributed one time to all cities and towns within that county. Here at the League, we have done a lot to try and provide information, and we've done town halls about how you can utilize those dollars within your community. I will say our #1 question has been, can I use these funds for public safety? And we have grappled with that question quite a bit. But I would like to open it up now to the floor and hear about how you've used your CARES funds within your community, and what you've found successful and what you've not found successful. So if anyone would like to start off, you can raise your hand, or I will willingly call on you. So at the top of the screen, I have a Tyson Hansen. Tyson, do you mind talking about a little bit about what your community has done with your CARES funding? And feel free to also expound on what you've done within your community regarding COVID.
Well, I was hoping just to get good ideas from everybody else. I didn't think I had any good ones. But I actually have a list right here of things that we have purchased. You want me just to read it?
Well, you can talk about some of the things that you have purchased, and if you can, anything within your department of why you've made the choices that you've made regarding those purchases.
Well, our police department needed some reworking to make it more, COVID friendly, I guess, with partitions, and actually made a separate room for as kind of like a lobby to keep people out. We converted all of our, or actually we're in the process, we're running into some supply chain issues, but we're in the process of converting all of our facilities to touchless, like toilets, flush valves and faucets, hand dryers, replacing doors with wave sensors, making them automatic. Of course, a lot of disinfectants and PPE, disinfectant sprayers, stuff like that. Just, yeah. And then actually we're in the process of kind of making a temporary that's not being used for anything, kind of converting it into a place where patients could go because our hospital has expressed a need for that.
Great. What would you say has been, and then I won't put you on the spot anymore, what has been the biggest challenge within your community regarding COVID?
Honestly, we're in Richfield. I don't know if you probably can't see that from where you're sitting, but honestly, we've been really blessed here. Now we have the ATV Jamboree going on as we speak, and that was a little bit scary. That's a county function, and we don't know what's going to come of that because there's a lot of people from out of the area in our town as we speak. But for the most part, honestly, we've been really blessed thus far. Don't know what the future holds, but honestly, there hasn't been huge challenges for us to overcome yet.
Great. Well, thank you. Anyone else want to touch on what their community is spending their CARES dollars and some of their best practices? Let's see, Drew Quinn. If you want to go ahead and just introduce yourself and state what city you're from and what position you're with
yes,
the city.
Thank you. My name is Drew Quinn. I'm with the Holiday City Council. And one thing that we did that I really enjoyed was, of course, we've put the bulk of our money toward rents and businesses and individuals, but we purchased about 2,000 cotton masks, usable, washable cotton masks. And we put out on our website that anyone who needed a mask could come through. And this was, early on. But the response from the community was really interesting and heartwarming, because we had it set up that you would drive through and we'd go up to the car and say, how many masks do you need? It was actually in August, close to when school was supposed to start. And families were there, so thrilled to get masks that they could wash. And it really brought the community together. It was a great activity. And then we did something similar where businesses could come drive through and pick up gallon hand sanitizers and packets of disposable masks that they could have at their businesses. So we've tried to really involve the community in these projects, and I think it's really helped.
Well, thank you for sharing, Drew. Do you find that the grant programs that you provided for your businesses in Holiday, has it been sufficient, or is there still a need within your business community for additional funding?
You know, I hate to say that I really can't answer that very well, because of we want to make sure, of course, we don't have to pay the money back. So we're a small city and didn't feel like we could vet our own businesses that were applying. Salt Lake County does have a program to do that. They're equipped to do that. So basically we have enlisted their help, and so we don't have direct contact with those businesses.
Well, no, that's great. It's actually a lot of communities have partnered with their counties to offer the grant program. So as we know that the CARES dollars, you can create a grant program for residents that are impacted by COVID, as well as your businesses impacted by COVID. And so you went to county, and Vernal have partnered together and created a grant program down in Washington County. It's similar, Iron County. So it's actually more common that cities are partnering with the counties to put together these grant programs for businesses. So what has been the biggest challenge for the city of Holiday and in this process?
For me, it's been the lack of feeling like we're part of a group. Holiday has a lot of established activities over the summer. We have summer concerts. We have the Blue Moon Festival that we always have in August that really attracts a lot of people. And of course, that they, for the most part, have had to be canceled. We've figured out a few things that we could do. We had a few drive-in concerts and things like that. But for the most part, I mean, our city council meetings are on Zoom. We're not getting together with people that we usually see. And in talking to my neighbors, that's a big problem. Is I'm sure everyone is feeling the same thing, that the disconnect from their neighbors and their community.
Yeah, I think that has been a big challenge for all of the communities that have, throughout the summer, we have festivals, there are parades, there are rodeos, and having to either make the decision to cancel those events or figure out how to hold those events in a safe manner that can provide distance and still provide the connection and the entertainment to residents. Is there anyone else on the call that has had to still hold an event within your city that you would like to talk about how you went about holding that and how you provided social distancing and how that was accepted by your residents? Has anyone held, like I said, any city functions, events like rodeos or parades, and how did that go? And again, you can use the raise the hand feature in the chat box, or if you just want to unmute and take the floor.
This is Brian Hewlett and Payson. I'm on the city council there. I don't know that we have a salmon supper that we do once a year. About 5,000 people come for 4 hours. We serve 5,000 people. And we're really worried about doing it this year, but we have a good person that puts on our events, and we were able to work with the county health department and everything. We're still able to, with social distancing and mask and everything, still be able to do that for 3,500 people, and that was like at the beginning of August. So it went really well and it worked out. So we're pretty excited about that. We did not have a parade or anything for our Onion Days, which was just Labor Days.
That's actually pretty impressive. Brian, can you talk to us about what you did to create that social distancing? Did you have to find a new venue that had more space? Did you have to spread out the catering to different sections of a park? If you could go into those details to help folks on the call understand how you were able to still hold a large event like that, but still protect the public.
Yeah, what we did is we people spread it out as they're coming in, and then we spread our tables out over a lot larger area than we usually do. And we also usually have entertainment, but we did away with the entertainment so people wouldn't come sit in one area. So those are kind of ways that we were able to get to do the social distancing. And we did spread. Another thing we did, and we started this a year ago, which really helped for this, is we have time blocks that people can come at certain time blocks. So you have tickets that go from 3 to 3:30. So only so many people would be coming at a certain time.
That's actually a really good idea. So when you got your time block, was it just based on when you bought your ticket, or was it based on like the letter of your last name, or how did you set those time frames?
Yeah, so when you buy your ticket, you just buy it for the time block you wanted, and as soon as that time block's gone, then you'd have to go to another time block. So it just depends on what you wanted to buy the ticket for, what time.
Great. Anyone have questions for Brian and how they held that event, or anyone else want to talk about an event that you've held within your community about and how you did it safely? Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and just call on someone to talk about, what you've been doing in your community, and maybe talk about any challenges that your community has regarding COVID. Again, this is really about being able to network as cities and towns and talk about what you've been doing and hear less from me. So I'd love more engagement. Let's see. Jeff Nielsen. I'm going to call on you. Do you want to go ahead and just unmute and talk about what your community has been doing and maybe some best practices that you've experienced through COVID?
I think guys like Tyson, I wanted to hear what other cities are doing. So I'm from Salem City, small town by just south of Provo and Spanish Fork. So we're just kind of wondering what other cities are purchasing. I mean, we're purchasing the regular hand sanitizers, the cleaning, the, face masks, all that. So we're doing all that. But then we've also had a company come and present to us that, hey, we can redo your council room, get it cameras, everything else, which would be good, because right now it's just kind of pieced together. It's not very professional. And, but it's expensive. It's about $100,000 to have them do it. I mean, that's with all the bells and whistles. And so we're wondering, man, is that something other cities are doing? Is that okay? Is that justified?
Yeah, Jeff, that's actually a really great question. So I'll touch on again, the league, we're in an interesting position because we didn't receive any CARES funding. It's you as cities and towns, and you're the ones who are taking the risks with these dollars and are obligated to follow the Treasury guidance. And so, we've tried to offer help and advice, but again, ultimately the decision sits with your city and your city council and mayor. In the Treasury guidance, it does state that you can purchase equipment for if you have employees that you need to now work from home and you need to purchase computer equipment to have them so they can have a laptop and go and work from home, or if you need to purchase equipment so your city can hold Zoom meetings. And those are all allowable and are in the Treasury guidance and frequently asked questions. I think where the confusion comes in is the Treasury guidance says you should consider things that were purchases that weren't necessarily envisioned within your already set budget. So if you do have a budget that is for upgrading your computer equipment and your software within your city budget, let's say it's $10,000, and you have a replacement program, CARES dollars would not cover the traditional purchases that you were planned on making anyways. What CARES dollars would cover is if you decide to go out and you were going to buy 5 employees a new computer, a new desktop to sit at their desk, but you end up having to purchase those employees a laptop and a microphone and a headset that they can now work from their home, or even software and tablets so they can go out and do inspections remotely. So like within your building departments, those are things that you hadn't planned for, but you need to purchase to continue to function as a city and do your job. And that would be allowable under CARES Act. I would also say that your $10,000 budget, if you planned on buying specific equipment and you end up buying something different that's differently envisioned, I'll use a better example. If you have an employee that enforces parking in your community and you budgeted for that employee, and you actually assign that, instead of they're doing parking enforcement, you reassign them to go and do sanitation work at your park. You can cover that employee's costs, even though you'd already budgeted for them within your general budget. You're asking them to do something different, which is envisioned that CARES Act dollars could potentially cover. So if I didn't confuse everyone, then great. But yes, CARES Act dollars does envision that you purchasing equipment to continue to function within a city and protect your employees. So I see Ty Bailey has their hand raised. So Jeff, you want to go ahead and just mute yourself and I'll mute, and then we'll let Ty take the floor and make a comment.
Thanks, Wayne. I was just gonna add to that. I'm from Morgan City. We're a really small city, so we're spending all of our money on those type of technologies. We did home offices, but now we also retrofitted the front office so that it has a barrier from the public to the employees. And for employee safety, we're now getting tablets for our public works personnel that they can do their blue stakes and take work orders remotely so that they don't have to constantly come in and out of the office. So we didn't ever think about that before because we're a small city and our guys just come into the office, find out what the work order is or what resident called, and we hand that off in a paper format. Then they go take care of it. So now we're also going to be buying kind of a work order system and some of the technologies that we just didn't have before. And we're establishing Wi-Fi hotspots in different areas of the city so that the tablets would connect directly to our servers and that sort of thing. So I think that expense that you brought up in your council room is eligible. I think I would have the same hesitancy that that's a lot of money for one minor upgrade. So we're kind of spreading our dollars out among a lot of different things, but it's a huge positive for us. Everything we can do to do online services and work remotely and build some efficiencies at the same time has been a real focus of ours. So that's where a lot of our money's going.
So Ty, can you talk a little bit about, and I think that's great. I think again, it's guidance under the CARES Act from the Treasury that makes that allowable. Ty, can you talk a little bit about the paperwork or documentation that you're keeping to make sure that if the Treasury shows up in 3 years and says, why did you spend it on those items? Can you talk a little bit about the paperwork that you're creating within your city to make sure everything's in order for a potential audit?
Yeah, so we just do it right in our accounting software. So I'm not sure what cities use Polaris, but we can do activity codes, and we can also just do a by line item. So later we can print a report and say, right in our accounting system, everything we just in the description type in COVID. So when I approve invoices, we kind of go through that process. Like, do you want to assign this to COVID or not? And because I'm the budget officer, I'm able to tell which was something that was planned for and something that we just started doing since the onset of COVID. So I probably shouldn't share this, but I'm actually at home right now with COVID. So it's awesome that everything's just a positive to me. It's like I'm isolated to a room, and here I'm still at the conference, and you guys would have never had the conference remotely if we didn't have this opportunity to embrace technology and get better at what we do. Not that I don't miss everybody, but anyway, just that's how we handle it here. So.
Well, thank you, Ty. I mean, that's some great information, and we hope that you have a speedy recovery. And yeah, we're glad that you're able to join us as well, and that we are able to still hold this conference and have so many people participating. Anyone else? Let's see. Casey Arnold, would you like to take the floor?
Oh, sorry. I was just giving him a thumbs up that I agree. But yeah, kind of along with that though, probably one of our biggest expenses is in software and just having to purchase more licenses for programs that people working from home need. Instead of saying, hey, can you get off a Laserfish? I need to get on or something. We've kind of done that in our VPN network so that we can remote in. I guess I just didn't realize how big of a cost those kinds of things were, but they've kind of started to add up, but necessary. That's all.
That's good. Casey, what city are you with, and what do you do for your city?
I'm with West Point City.
Okay.
And I am the city recorder and HR manager.
Great. So I'm going to continue to put you on the spot. Have you found that the money that West Point has received to date, has it been sufficient for your needs? Or are you finding that you'll probably use the full 3 tranches?
No, it's been sufficient, and we have donated to our county's business grant program and some of their childcare things that they've done. And we've still, and some of our special districts, like our fire district, they've asked for some money to cover their personnel costs. And yeah, we'll use it, but I mean, you know, it's a lot to spend too, so.
Sure. And while we've got you, any lessons learned that you'd like to share with the rest of the group? Something that your city is now doing that you find exciting, but has only been because of COVID that you made these changes?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of office kind of rearranging and changing. It's always been kind of an open floor plan, but just with the need to social distance and have things more accessible. So the residents aren't coming into City Hall and, you know, meeting so many people. We're changing where our rec department is so that there's just one door that they're going in and out of and things. So that's just kind of exciting. But the whole thing, I mean, like Ty was saying, I feel like it's all been really positive and made us, you know, move into the future or move into the now when we were in the past still with, you know, paper signups and things like that. But yeah.
How has been your residents' transition to the new normal, the now more online, more interfacing through technology versus coming in and trying to speak with someone?
I think it's kind of forced them to just deal too, you know, and obviously there's always those ones that aren't going to be happy no matter what. But I think everyone's kind of used to having to just deal with things being differently. And so it's kind of trained them as well, which makes, you know, the process on our side easier, you know, to implement like pull reports and things like that when it's already done online. And so, I think it's just been positive. I do hope that we don't lose that face-to-face interaction with our residents, which I really like. But even during our council meetings, we do them as a webinar, but allow, when someone wants to comment, allow them to show their video. So at least you're kind of getting that interaction. You can see their face instead of just a voice. But you know, there's ups and downsides, but I think it's been positive, like he said.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Anyone who wants to go next to talk about, again, what's been successful within your community regarding utilizing CARES Act? We've touched a little bit on holding large events. We've touched on using your CARES dollars to purchase technology to allow your city to function in the new normal. Looks like I've got Rachel Day. So Rachel, if you could just announce what city you're with, what you do with whether you're elected official or you work within the city, and I'll give you the floor.
Why, thank you, I guess. I'm a city planner in Saratoga Springs, so I can't say I deal with allocation of CARES funding. I do know, though, from a planning side, we do get more calls about people wanting to have more accessory dwelling units, so they're basements, because they're having a lot of family members who are struggling and they want them to move in, or friends, and they just are trying to find ways to save money and to make sure that they can weather any type of pandemic that could come in the future too. So that's the extent of what I know.
So Rachel, what has the city done differently regarding taking those requests and responding to the public? Are you doing Zoom calls with residents? Are you doing like scheduled meetings where they can come in person, but be in a conference room? If you just want to touch on that, that would be great.
Yeah, we have 5 planners in our city. So for example, in our department, there's only one of us in the office a day, and we just have 1 day a week. And then I know all of the other departments that can do that are doing the same thing, where only one person will be in. We have Zoom calls with applicants. And I also know our department, we already did have some permissions to be telecommuting. So it made that pretty easy for us. But now we all have monitors at home and could even get chairs and keyboards, all of that stuff to have a home office. And we are only taking everything electronically, except for things that have to be physical documents for recording purposes. But otherwise, everything's electronic, and we're emailing and calling a lot. And so that's how we're communicating with applicants and residents. And so, yeah, that's what's been going on with that. So it's just when we go to the office, there's a lot less people there.
Last question for you. How has the general public handled these changes? Have they been accepting, or has it been kind of a learning curve for the general public to transition over to more of an electronic communication process with the city?
Most of them don't mind the electronic process at all. They actually find it nice that they don't need to come in for meetings or other different things going on. And I'd say from what I've seen on various social media pages too, there's been more takeout to support businesses. And we actually had a Costco open as well. So there's just a lot of excitement regarding certain types of development coming in. But they haven't seemed to be upset by it, except wanting to be social, of course. But otherwise, most people appreciate that we can email and that they can scan in signatures instead of having to bring in a paper with a signature and whatnot.
Great. Well, thank you, Rachel, for sharing. I was listening to a town hall by Silicon Slopes early on in this process, and one of the comments they were making is that where we've jumped to today regarding telework and remote kind of projects, that was probably 10 to 15 years in the future. That's where technology was moving, and that's where industries have been moving. And so this has been a large jump, I think, for all industries, especially cities and towns, as we move more to communicating and interfacing with our residents through technology. All right, anyone else want to take the floor before I call on a willing participant? Let's see, we've got a Jared Waite. If you want to go ahead and just introduce yourself and tell us what city you're with and what you do with your city, and I'll turn the floor over to you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. I'm Jarrett Wade. I'm a city council member in Santa Clara down in southern Utah. So we've been kind of struggling with our CARES Act funding. So far, we did spend money to put barriers in our front office for our staff. And that took even some woodwork to make it look nice. We did just approve adding video conferencing to our council room, our meeting room, and also an upstairs conference room. We bought lots of PPE, but we feel like we still have a lot of money to spend. And so we've been contemplating partnering up with the county or St. George or something with helping businesses or doing something on our own. We're not quite sure there. And then in terms of like changes we've done that kind of stick out to me is we had a pretty hot topic in a council meeting recently, and we are back to meeting in person. We still have the Zoom available for anyone that doesn't feel comfortable coming. But we actually had to set up a second like Zoom spot in our banquet room because we spread out the chairs so far in our council room that we couldn't fit everyone. So we actually had them like basically take a number and come in to address the council, so we didn't have too many people in there. And then in terms of events, we did have a grand opening of our BMX track, and we just asked the operators to give us a really well-defined plan on how they would social distance. I think we're totally booked for ball tournaments, like every weekend until the end of the year, and all those tournaments have to give us a really well-defined plan. And we actually did have a tournament get shut down because of a COVID case, so that the organizers followed that really well. And then as a city, we have a really good parks department that wanted to put on a Halloween event because we're not quite sure how trick-or-treating will happen this year. And so we've set up near City Hall, basically kind of a haunted house walkthrough sort of a thing. It'll be family friendly, but we'll just space the families as they come through and they just get a bag of candy at the end. And there'll just be little displays they can look at. And so at least have something for the kids in case parents don't feel safe sending their kids out. So that's kind of where we're at in Santa Clara.
Great, yeah, thank you for sharing. Jared, do you mind talking a little bit more to the group about for the tournaments that could be held within the city and kind of the plans that need to be submitted? Is the city asking for any specific requirements like temperature checks or, you know, people seated together only be families if they're spectators? Can you just touch a little bit about what you're expecting from those kind of applications or submissions?
Yeah, for sure. So we just ask each tournament to fill out the guide given out by the governor, and just fill out every single thing in that little guide to make sure that everything is taken care of. And then we do have staff that goes up and checks occasionally to make sure they're following those rules. We did make it, we basically extended our dugouts so the stands are part of the dugout, so even the teams can be spread out and then no spectators there. But then we did allow, like in the outfield, past where a ball would go for people to set up their own chairs and spectate that way. So, and I'm not sure about temperature checks, to be honest.
Okay, not a problem. Well, thank you for sharing. We appreciate that insight. And one thing I will say is that the Treasury guidance does allow for you to do grant programs, and partnering with your county or even neighboring cities is a great idea. And we have held a town hall about Vernal and Uintah County and their grant program for businesses. So I'm happy to it's on our website at ulct.org if you want to check those out under COVID resources. One thing I will say is that you can do a grant program for businesses, but you can also do a grant program for impacted residents. And I know that a lot of cities have foregone charging some of the utility expenses. So if you provide water or power or sewer, if you've allowed people to lapse in those utilities, you can't. Let me make this very clear. The Treasury says you can't cover those bills with CARES dollars internally. So if you have a resident who is $100 behind on their water bill, you can't take CARES dollars and cover that. But what you can do is you can create a grant program for residents to cover essential utilities. So you could give them $300, and if they turn around and pay that $100 negative that they have within the city, that's fine. They could also take the money and use it to pay for their cell phone bill or whatever you deem as an essential utility within your grant program. But this is, again, another acceptable way in which you can help your residents and spend those CARE dollars to make sure that their essential needs are being covered within your city or town. All right. Anyone else wanting to share about what they're doing within their community regarding COVID or CARES Act or events throughout this process? If you want to raise your hand, or I will call on the next participant. Let's see, I've got one moment here. David Kitchen. David, if you want to go ahead and just introduce what city you're with and what you do for your city, and then take the floor.
Sure. I'm the HR manager for Lehigh City. And so we have our own utilities, water and power. We also have rec center, police and fire. So we've used CARES money for PPE, not only for masks, but we opened our rec center with precautions. So having plexiglass barriers for people to make sure the residents feel safe, extra cleaning rounds and everything. Another purpose that we've used CARES for is the paid sick leave and expanded FMLA leave for our employees. So we various times throughout the summer, or let me back up. We deemed everything but our leisure services as essential employees. And under FFCRA, that means that they would be eligible, but it comes at a cost, right? So we were able to use CARES money to cover that cost so that the additional leave allows the employees to be away from work and safe, but still have income during this difficult time. And we felt like that was an appropriate use to make sure that the employees know that we're trying to take care of them, even though they're essential and require them to do as much work as possible to provide essential services to the community. But it was a way to support them to feel like, hey, if you have someone off, go be with them and stay well, go get tested and recover, rather than worrying about where's that paycheck gonna come from. And so we had a bunch in April as schools were shut down. We have a bunch more now as COVID cases rise again. But we are happy to facilitate that and allow even going sometimes looking at the situation, say, what can we do to provide for those employees and be beneficial to them?
Well, that's great. So one thing that I'm curious about is, so now that this opportunity is there for a majority of your employees as essential employees, how are you managing staffing wise? I mean, within your utility department, or when staffers go down or take advantage of that benefit, how do you compensate as a city to make sure you're still meeting all your needs?
Yeah, so we allow a lot of employees to work from home. We've allowed them to take equipment home, or we had Microsoft Teams available, but we weren't really using it until now. And now we're all experts on it, right? And so when an employee is impacted, it really depends. We've been fortunate enough not to have to shut down departments. We're large enough that we kind of double cover some areas. We have had to shut down certain teams, or like our outdoor pool. If we had enough exposure, we would shut down until we could have the minimum staffing level. So, so knock on wood, fortunately, we haven't had to shut down whole departments, but moved a lot of services online where they can, like Rachel was saying in Saratoga Springs, they can submit plans online, they can apply for utilities online, they can correspond online. So that limits the face-to-face interaction and the risk levels that come with that.
And so for any employee that does take advantage of this benefit, do you require as a city, what kind of documentation do you require? Does the family member or the individual have to have a positive test for COVID, or do they simply just need to notify the city, I'm taking advantage of this benefit and here's why?
Yeah, we've been taking, I guess, the policy of trust there that we don't really expect people, and we've heard that the medical professionals don't want to be overwhelmed with a request for documentation either, right? So we generally take their word on it. If we need to verify afterwards, we can, but all the requests go through my desk, and then I communicate that with our payroll team, that if it's on their time card, then at least I know about it, and we can research information if we need to, but we're not actively requiring a doctor's note or a school closure note. We know which schools are closed in the community, and that makes sense to us. So we took a position that let's trust as much as we can first before we require documentation. But in the case that something doesn't seem right, we can ask for documentation later and change, retro pay anything if we need to.
Great, thank you. This has been, I think, helpful information for everyone. Thank you for sharing. So Jeff Nielsen had a question in the chat box. Has anyone offered a grant to the residents? If so, do you have a form that you can share, and also any info on the criteria used to award the grant? So I'll throw that question out to the group, and if you can raise your hand so you can, explain kind of the program that you've put together. I do know that North Logan and Sandy, the city of Sandy, both put together grant programs for residents that were to help cover utility expenses for their residents. All right, let me see if anyone has raised their hand. So I'm going to assume that no one on the call is offering a grant program to the residents to date, but Jeff, I can work to get you in contact with, like I said, North Logan and Sandy City, who have put together programs for their residents.
One thing doing in Payson is, I think we copied Santaquin and somebody else, but we're actually giving out gift cards to, like $50 gift cards to every resident in the city, that they have to spend it in the businesses in Payson. So it covers both the residents and the businesses. So that's one thing we're doing. So
Brian, how are you verifying that residents are doing that? Is it something that a resident can take to a business within the city and then you reimburse the business with that?
Yeah, the businesses have to sign up. So we're getting businesses right now to sign up. So, and then the residents take that gift certificate to that business, spend the money, and then the business comes back and gets reimbursed from the city.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing. All right, any other brave volunteers that want to go ahead and talk about what they're doing within their city regarding, again, events, how you're adjusting to providing services to the public, or how you're using your CARES dollars?
Hey, Wayne.
Yes.
This is Jeff Nielsen with Salem again. So back to the Payson gentlemen, are they using CARES Act or CARES funding for that, for the businesses and that, to reimburse the businesses back, or the gift card?
Yeah, we're using the CARE funding, yep.
Okay. Who's in charge of that over there? Is that Dave?
Dave's probably the one you want to contact.
Okay,
On that.
thank you.
Yep.
So we're scheduled to go to 4:15, but I think we'll just take about 10 more minutes. And it looks like Donna Burnham wants to take the floor. So Donna, if you just want to introduce yourself, what city you're with, and I'll give you the floor.
Sure. I'm a city council member from Eagle Mountain City, and events are a big part of what makes us a community. And so we've really struggled with that. And so our events department has been doing modified events. They've been doing them online, like for our Pony Express days. They took some of the events that we typically have in Pony Express days and made them kind of an online thing. Families could do them together. They could send in a video, and then there were prizes for the best and whatever. And we did that through our Facebook page, and it was really successful, and it made people feel like they weren't at least completely missing out on events.
Great. Do you have any other events planned for the fall, similar to the one that was where there's going to be like a trick-or-treating event? Do you have anything planned in Eagle Mountain for this fall?
Yeah, they're looking at a trick-or-treating event that will be modified, but they haven't gotten to the exact details yet. But we're hoping to get there and hoping to just continue the events in some fashion to keep the community together.
Great. Well, yeah, we realize that that's been one of the biggest challenges, is just bringing folks back together and making sure we can do it in a safe manner. So I appreciate you sharing that and talking about how you've made adjustments. Well, we're starting to lose some folks, so I just wanted to thank everyone for participating in our roundtable today. Like I said, this was more about a discussion amongst the membership to talk about what is being effective within your communities as we move through COVID. And like I said, there are a lot of things changing, and there's a lot of things that are happening. And so we as league staff want to be helpful. Feel free to reach out to us throughout this process. I have been handling a lot of the CARES questions, and we can't make the decision for you. I largely refer you to the guidance and help you try and see the guidance that is currently available. But thank you to everyone for participating, for coming to this event tonight, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference and have found this time valuable. And thank you for everyone that shared tonight in what's happening within their communities. So have a great evening.